you can prepare yourself in a way that if you were, frankly, okay, a starting black man, other people may not want to help you. Whether you don't have to be racism. It's just because people don't help people like themselves. They don't see themselves in that person, right? How many times do you hear that? Okay, now you can now have access to a lot of those things because that knowledge is out there, and now it's being synthesized for you with AI. And so that is what I mean when I say it's the equalizer. It's both the spread of the tools themselves and your ability to use it to access things like mentoring, like role playing, like conversations, like analysis that is available 24/7, just at a keyboard away, right? You're ready to go.
We'll discuss race and how it plays a factor and how we didn't even talk about this topic because we were afraid.
A Black Executive Perspective.
BEP is on fire. Our audience is growing fast and the impact is real. Now is the time for your brand to grow with us and reach a highly engaged, influential community with real spending power. Don't miss this moment. Email us today at media@TonyTidbit.com. Let's make it happen and put you and your brand in front of the people that matter. We are coming to you live from the new BEP studio for another thought-provoking episode of a Black Executive Perspective podcast. Safe space where we discuss all matters regarding race, culture, and those uncomfortable topics people tend to avoid. I'm your host, Tony Tidbit.
And I'm your co-host, Chris P. Before we get started, we always like to remind you to check out our partners at Code M Magazine. Code M Magazine, whose mission is saving the black family by first saving the black man. Check them out at CodeMMagazine2Ms.com.
Definitely check them out. And I want everyone to check out what we're going to discuss today. So, for decades, peak performance followed a very predictable arc. You rise, you plateau, and then you decline, right? But what if that motto is obsolete today? Well, we're going to sit down with MIT engineer and former Bridgewater and Citadel executive Ted Yang as he explains how AI is changing what peak performance looks like at every stage of your career. Drawing from his upcoming book titled Ageless Peak Performance, Ted will break down how AI augments human thinking, extends your prime years, and may be the greatest equalizer corporate America has ever seen. I didn't see anything about you getting stronger muscles or anything like that, but we're going to dive into that too, right? All right, we're going to see if that's real too. So this is not about, Ted saying this ain't about working harder. It's about thinking differently before the gap becomes irreversible. Ted Yang, my brother, welcome to a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Thank you, Tony and Chris. Pleasure to be here, guys.
Absolutely. So before we get deep into this, and it's obviously going to be very deep, tell us a little bit about where you currently reside and a little bit about your day-to-day.
Sure. So I live in New Canaan, Connecticut. I've been here, way too long, almost 20 years now. Okay. I kind of lived all over the country, but settled here to have my family. And gotcha. I've got 2 kids. They're twins. They're both right now in the high school here. Okay. And hopefully sometime soon, not too far in the future, we'll be off to college.
I appreciate that. So give us a little bit about you and the career journey and what got us in this opportunity to speak with you.
Sure. So I am an engineer, an MIT engineer who actually never did engineering. I actually went and did a career in finance. So, not too unusual, right? Sometimes people do something, you think it's something you might want to do. You realize, what? I'm more drawn to something else. In my case, it was because all my friends were going to Wall Street, and I said, you know what? I'm not that original. I'll follow along. Really, that's what happened. So it was pretty cool. I worked a career there, banks, hedge funds, ultimately finishing as executive at, as you mentioned, at Bridgewater, Citadel, Tudor, other places. And it was a fun ride, but honestly, kind of everything stopped when my wife had triplets at 24 weeks, which is a crazy different story. I actually wrote a different book about that, which is behind me, but that's not today's podcast. But when that happened, that really kind of changed things. And so after kind of all the dust settled, which took a while, I said, you know what? Thank you for the money. Thank you for all the time. But you know what? I can't care about these problems anymore. I got to do something that makes a lot more sense to me. And I'm sure that resonates with you guys, right?
Absolutely.
You know, you got to be more authentic to yourself. And so, frankly, I said, you know what? Let's try other things. I became an entrepreneur. I started a lot of different companies. And then one of those is, of course, how I met Tony, many years ago, my friend. And, we've kept that relation. So I thank you, for having me here today.
That's awesome, my man. Yeah, and listen, we've known each other now almost 10 years, I think, maybe a little, maybe 10 years, maybe a little under. And you've always been, and you said entrepreneur, but you've been a serial entrepreneur, right? And I'm not talking about eating Wheaties and cornflakes, right? You've started a bunch of businesses in all different type of sectors and been very successful and sold those companies. You travel a lot. Like you said, you have 2 teenage twins, so you got a lot going on. So the question I have for you, Ted, why did you want to come on a Black Executive Perspective podcast, talk about this topic?
Well, first of all, the topic is really important to me, right? The Ageless Peak Performance is really my reaction to what's been going on in my life. And frankly, I'm about to hit 50, and age is just a number, but it's also very real. Right? Very real in terms of some of the things that you care most about, physically, obviously, but also intellectually. Up here, your abilities change as you get older, and not necessarily in a good way. And so I've been working, to really better myself and think about that. And then I'm like, you know what? I need to share some of this knowledge around. And really what changed the game and really brought me here, brought me to write the book and brought me here is because of AI, right? And when I say AI, I mean generative AI, I mean large language models, stuff like Claude, ChatGPT, right? AI is a much broader topic than that, but that's what I specifically mean. And its ability to really give you a peak of performance that can last. And I do profoundly believe this, and I think that, it is an important topic. And also an important topic, especially for Black executives, because I also believe AI is a great equalizer. Right, and we'll talk more about why that's the case.
Well, buddy, you seem like you're chomping at the bit, and I like it. You ready to talk about it, Ted?
Let's do it.
All right, let's talk about it, my brother.
All right, well, let's jump into it. So me as a historian, not an engineer, I think about things like fire, the wheel, the forge, the printing press. It makes it seem like this tool that is AI is the next since sliced bread, right? So tell me how you put it in that pantheon of things and what makes you think it's fundamentally different than anything we've had come across before.
Sure. Well, I think you hit the most important point there, Chris, which is AI is just a tool, right? Mankind made it, and we use it to make ourselves better. Now, the things that you talked about, some of those things, like say fire or spears, right? Those are things to improve our physical abilities, right? Make our food warmer, make it more nutritious, kill animals or defend your family or whatever, right? Okay, those are physical tools. Well, somewhere along the line, we started creating intellectual tools. You mentioned the printing press. Well, the printing press is an intellectual tool. It allowed the dissemination of knowledge, right?
That's right.
To people who previously were unable to get knowledge when, basically monks had to scribe out books. Only the richest and most elite people, had learning. Now, more people had learning. Many more people had learning. Well, that was a great thing for everybody, right? So that was an intellectual tool, right? Now, along those lines, we've got calculators, we've got Google, we got the internet. AI, it's the next thing. So it's just a tool. So that's the first thing that people need to understand. It is a tool, right? And this is, my answer when people ask the question of is AI cheating? Right now, yes and no, but basically it's a tool, right? So if you use it as a tool, that's natural. That's what we do as humans.
Right,
we use tools, right? Now, other animals can use tools. Humans are the only ones that can make tools to use tools to make other tools, all right? And that's how we ultimately got to AI. But back to, what you can or cannot do with AI, this is the point, right? I view it as the next evolution. The only difference is it's an intellectual tool, so it's augmenting it up here, right? And it's also interactive. So this is a little bit different, than your calculator or even Google, right? Because you can work with it, right? It's conversational in a different way. But it is still fundamentally a tool, and a tool that can let you perform at your peak.
So, Ted, and when you think about it, right, and you just broke it down, it's a tool. Chris kicked it off. It's a tool. However, look, let's be fair too, because you have when we look at it from different perspectives, you have major corporations that have jumped in and that are investing billions and I'm talking about a ton of money to use this tool where they think that it's going to make their company more efficient. They think it's going to make their company, to your point, increase their overall performance. They're even laying people off, firing people to use that money to be able to invest in this, right? Now, the other perspective is it's the people, right? There's a lot of people, to your point, because there is this cheating, they have been resistant to use AI, right? And even though they're seeing the companies that they work at invest billions, even at their expense, they've been resistant to it because they look at it as, it's like cheating or something of that nature. Or is it more about the fear of, I don't really know how to use this? Or is it about, I'm afraid to be replaced? Talk a little bit about that, my brother.
It's time to rethink your protein. Agilab's protein bars are crafted with high-quality protein, double the leucine, and enriched branched-chain amino acids, essential for optimal muscle recovery. Finally, a protein bar that works as hard as you do. So visit agilabs.com and use the code BEP to get 20% off. That's agilabs.com, promo code BEP.
I think it's a mix of all those things. Well, the first thing let me talk about is the layoffs, right? First of all, those are headlines that are meant to please Wall Street, right? That's what this is about. It doesn't even make common sense, right? Just think about that, right? So you suddenly get this new tool. This is a tool that works with human beings. And now suddenly you're going to discard the people that are really like your best contributors? Hell no. They're just using it as yet another excuse to get rid of the people they don't like, right? They're just another excuse to get rid of the people they don't like, except this excuse helps their stock price. Because now they say AI and other companies see that, investors see that and they go, well, this company's really forward looking, right? Like you just said, they take the money there where it's not performing, they put it someplace where it is performing. Well, I really think that's silly, right? You're kind of missing the forest for the trees, right? Mm-hmm. But let's talk about the cheating aspect, right? Mm-hmm. I think you hit upon that, Tony. People, it's a mixture, right? People are afraid of anything new. Inertia is real. Right? So Socrates, we're talking about writing. Socrates didn't like writing. He thought writing made people lazy. Back in those days, they made them memorize gigantic epic poems. Okay? Writing makes you lazy because you can read it. Well, think about that. Now, you think writing is lazy now? I don't know. So I think AI, people, when they say cheating, okay, they're looking for an excuse to not do it. Okay? But honestly, there's a big difference, right? So if right now I were going to take a piece of work that was written by Chris and pull it off as something that's written by Ted, that ain't right. Right. With AI, that's also not right. There's no difference. I don't need AI to plagiarize. I don't need AI to steal someone else's work, right? That's cheating no matter how you look at it, right? So does it make it easier to cheat? Sure, of course it does, right? Just like the internet made it easier to cheat, right? But that doesn't mean that it in and of itself cheating, right? But now let's talk about the people again, right? Because I think a lot of this book is about the mindset. It's about making sure that you're in the right headspace to understand. And what I do is I break it down, right, into both a history lesson, right? So people can understand where we're getting, how we got here and where we're going, right? And into principles and superpowers, right? Because I'm trying to make it accessible to people so they can have less fear, so they can think about how they can themselves perform better and focus on what they could do with AI rather than looking at it as this is replacing me, rather than looking at this as this is for young people or this is for, tech people or this is for, because it isn't, okay? It's for everybody. And I'll ask you guys a simple question, right? You think either you yourselves or other people are hiring, all right, new graduates who don't know AI, right? Are people doing that? No, they're not doing that because they're thinking, hey, you know what? I need that skill set, and why am I bring another person into this company that doesn't know how to use these tools? No way.
Right. Makes total sense.
You said something that was valuable here, so let me break this down really simplistically. A hammer is a great tool, but you don't use it to paint a house. It's not a proper tool to paint a house. In the idea of cheating, I think it kind of cascades not only from a personal perspective with the people, but also a corporation perspective as it relates to people's desire for credit. So in my research, you had said something about Coursera, and you had talked about the fact that it's agnostic, meaning it'll give you all of the information from the universities, but it compiles it so that no particular university gets the credit for teaching you whatever it gave you. In the idea of if it's giving you all the answers, but nobody's getting credit for being the sensei, pun intended, then is that a fear that we have, or does that feel like cheating because it gave me the shortcut or the actual answer that I can't take credit for?
Well, that's a great insight, Chris. I think that's a great insight, man. I think that is exactly on the money, right? Because since we were young, we're told about put your name on the corner of anything of my art.
That's right. That's right.
You better, at least in this country. I don't know about other countries, right? But here's
we used to sign checks.
You put your name. Hey, hold on. But to be fair, we're getting away from putting your name. You hear anonymous sources. You hear stuff to that nature. But to your point, Ted, you're 100% right. Finish your thought, bro.
No, so the credit I think is huge, right? And again, I think it is a lot of this is trying to understand, well, if the machine is doing it, is it the creator? Am I the creator? I think the answer is it's together, right? You're working together with it. It's the humans that built it. It's the humans that trained it. It's the humans that run it. It's the human that's using it, you, right? All of that together with the technology, it's no different, right? It's no different. Now, maybe we'll start to see, just like we have today, we have chess tournaments with, well, in theory, it's illegal to use AI, but they do it and they cheat or whatever, right? And there's these big scandals, but like they explicitly are like, no AI, no computer chess, right? This is a human chess tournament, okay?
Right.
And you see that. These are the rules. Okay, fine. You start to see that. But other places, right, I think it is absolutely about, I want to be able to say, I did it myself. But that's never been true, my man. No one's ever done anything themselves. You want to take credit for it, though,
No. What's that old saying? Somebody said this. I went to the speaker symposium about how to be a great speaker, and this guy, I think his name was Ty Boyd. That's who it was, Ty Boyd. And Ty Boyd said, one of the things is that if Ted Yang said something that's profound, the first time I would tell other people, say, hey, a friend of mine named Ted Yang said this. Then the second time I said, I think I heard this from my man Ted Yang. And then the third time I said, it's like, as I always say. Right? And we steal stuff all the time. All right. And I don't even want to use the word steal, but my point is, we're going to use information that other people, even from a verbiage standpoint, we're going to take that and say, wow, that's great. And then we're going to apply it. And then eventually 6 months, a year later, it's going to be like, this is the way I always thought of it and blah, blah, blah. So I don't see that any different. But let's back up a little bit, man, because, again, when I was going through the episode description, we talked about peak performance. Okay. And you're saying peak performance isn't gone. All right. Now, again, as a former athlete, Chris used to play football and stuff to that nature, right? When we think in a peak performance, obviously from a physical realm, but then also, when you're in corporate America, you go through, and it's always about knowledge and experience, right? And the more that you gather, the more that you're at the top of your game, right? But then there's this thing that we haven't shook for years when it comes to age. Okay. One of the things when I was a kid, somebody that was 40 years old or 50, they looked like they were 80 years old or 60 years old. They didn't have that much longer to live, right? And so today we have these phrases that 60 is the new 50, and 50 is the new 40, and blah 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 blah, because we're taking care of ourselves because of the knowledge, okay, of eating right and all those type things, working out, taking care of our bodies. We're aging well, right, and we're living longer, okay. Yep. However, when it comes to work, when people get to the 50s and 55 and 60s, the companies look at them like, oh, you over the hill now, right? And the whole 9 yards. So when you say peak performance isn't gone, right, talk a little bit about how AI is going to extend that.
Absolutely. So a couple things. I think that you point out, right, that things change as you get older, right? So let's talk about specifically in terms of what's happening in terms of your capabilities. So I talked about this earlier, but you slow down, right? You physically slow down, you mentally slow down, right? This is true. Everyone knows that's the case, right? Now, that also happens with your memory, but it isn't the case that you can't remember stuff. It's just that you got too much stored in there. Okay, you think about as you get older, you got this huge, file drawers full of information. You're putting more stuff in there. Now you're trying to find something in there. It's harder to find. It's hard to put new stuff in there. It's harder to find information. That's why it takes you longer to figure it out. But you still remember stuff. You just remember stuff from way back when. all right? Because that stuff's really, really in your head. So your memory and your speed goes down. Now, what happens, hopefully, right, is that you get better at this strategy. You get better because of expertise, what they call crystallized knowledge, right? The ability to see the pattern because you've seen it before, right? You're like, listen, I'm not going to freak out about this. I've seen this situation before. I'm going to take what I previously learned, I'm going to tweak it, and I'm going to apply it here, right? If you don't have that experience, you never learn it. With the experience, you might not learn it. That's, again, just getting older doesn't necessarily mean you will get better, but that's what you see in organizations. So that's why, that you see people plateauing 40s, 50s, and certainly by the time you're 60, right? Now, and then that peak falls off. Now, the difference now with AI, right, is twofold. So first of all, let me give some love to younger listeners as well, right? Because if you're younger, AI also helps you get up the curve faster, right? Because how many of us are being told, wait your turn, right? Pay your dues, right? And you hear about it takes 10,000 hours to learn anything, right? Well, it takes years to get past your 10,000 hours, okay? So, what can AI do for that? It can help you learn faster. It can train you faster. You can work in real situations with it as a partner. You can come up the curve much, much faster, okay? Now, once you're up on that peak, okay, how do you keep it flat? Think about what happens with senior executives right now. Okay, so if you're a senior executive right now, are you out there working all-nighters, right? Analyzing, crunching spreadsheets? You're not doing that anyway.
No,
You've got teams of people to go do that. Well, now everyone on the org chart has a team of AI that can do that with them, right? That's the analogy, right? So AI can do the same things that junior staff do for senior people, right? Senior executives. Right? It can do the analyzing. It can do the research. It can give you ideas. It can go through all sorts of different iterations and stuff. It can make happy presentations. It can fix those presentations. It can do all sorts. It can make mistakes also, right? But it can do all of that in the way that it might work if you're sitting on top of a team. Except you don't have to sit on top of a team anymore. You can go do this, right, for free or with a low-cost subscription, right? So now think about that. That means that AI team, right? Those AI powers that you're working together with in specific ways, which I lay out in the book, okay? That allows you to maintain that peak, right? Because you think about who are the exceptions to the rule of the people they throw out? The CEO and senior leadership, okay? You want to look at the really old people in an organization? Those people are often like, they're past that kind of retirement age where if they were younger, they'd be like, well, I'm not sure what you're going to do. But at that level, you're like, well, I'm not going to throw out the guy who's got all that experience and knows everything about this company and everything about this industry. Why am I going to do that? Right? Just because that guy can't crank out reports as fast as he used to, well, that's ridiculous. I'm going to hire a person for 1/10 of the salary to go do that for that person, right? Same thing with AI. Think about all the different ways it's going to augment that capability so that you can keep cranking that work out while you get better at the expertise.
So two things. One is back to what you said about Socrates and the fact that his thought process with lack of usage, it will atrophy. So he wanted you to memorize these things because he wrote it down. The stronger you are, the more exercise your brain gets, that type of deal. Now, I'm going to take this away from Tony for this episode, and I'm going to do my movie reference. Usually Tony does all the movie references. He has a monopoly on it. So RoboCop, right? RoboCop, is he more machine or is he more man? The fact is, if people have a tendency to, when they find something that greases the wheels, to abuse the grease. And so at some
that's
point,
automatic, right? Yeah. Go ahead, bro.
Yeah. So at some point, yes, you utilize it as a crutch, then it becomes a wheelchair, then it becomes a hover round, and now all of a sudden you in a floating device because you just don't even feel like walking anymore. How do you as a company temper that or calibrate how much of this is the machine that I didn't already pay for or the person that I'm putting at a top salary because of seniority? And they're just, spending 2 hours a day doing 18 hours worth of work because the computer is just taking suggestions and spitting out stuff. How do I evaluate that?
If you like what you hear and want to join us on this journey of making uncomfortable conversations comfortable, please subscribe to a Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple Podcasts, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. Hit subscribe now to stay connected for more episodes that challenge, inspire, and lead the change.
You're 100% right. And in fact, if you think about this, who are the people they should be cutting? They should be cutting the people who are basically just pushing paper around, right? People who are just basically moving pieces around, because that's the machine can do that better than you can, right? So you're absolutely right? In any organization, there are people who, basically are just hoarding the power and trying to steal it, right? And
but that would never change, though. That ain't gonna never change.
It'll never change. But get back to your point. I think RoboCop, right? All these analogies, like we're talking about hybrids. We're talking about human AI hybrids. That's what we're talking about, right? Working together. This goes back to the ownership thing, right? It's not just me. It's not just Claude or ChatGPT. We're working together, right? Now, the key, though, is that this book is about human peak performance and working together with machines, right? Okay. So the key is that, one of the principles is keep your judgment at the center, right? And that is the most important thing, right? There are obviously plenty of ways you can not keep your judgment at the center, right? You can go, and this is where you see a lot of people, right, who are just new to these, AI, LLM. They go do this, right? And then they just take it and they say, well, this is amazing. And they cut and paste it and they send it to their teacher, right, as their assignment. Or you even have lawyers who sent it to judges saying, like, look, I did the research. And the judge is like, what is this crap, right? Like, what are you doing? Right. And then the question I got for any of you guys is, look, you're a lawyer. If you took what the associate did or your paralegal did and you just handed it to the judge, what would happen? Right. And now you're going to do this with machines. It's crap. That's crap. So back to the point. The judgment is what makes the difference. Right. And so some people, as I said before, just because you're older doesn't mean you have better judgment and experience. That's an opportunity. Now, again, that's something that AI can help you augment. Again, I go through some of the approaches that you can do that in the book. Right. The point is, Ageless Peak Performance means understanding all the different aspects about how you perform, right? And that, in and of itself, guys, is something different that you don't see in a lot of organizations, all right? People take for granted that they're good at something. They don't really want to be that reflective about what it is because they're afraid that they find out that the emperor has no clothes.
Right.
That's an excellent point, buddy. That's an excellent point.
So for our listeners, can you give us a sneak peek into the portion of the book? And what's the book title? Have you titled it? What's the book title?
Ageless Peak Performance.
Yeah.
Ageless Peak Performance. Ageless Peak Performance. So this AI superpower, right? We're going to talk about AI superpowers and those principles. Give me one example that an executive could use to augment the ability of AI to act as a superpower for his or her daily or monthly or quarterly benefit.
Sure. So one that is less obvious is the superpower of strategic clarity, right? Okay. So some superpowers are a little bit more obvious, right? One is 10x execution. You can kind of figure out what that means, but actually doing it well, I think, is different. But strategic clarity is something a little bit different, right? And so I actually opened up the chapter with a quote from Napoleon, right? Where he's like, listen, and again, I'm paraphrasing, right? I should just read it, but I'm just going to paraphrase it, where he's like, listen, it would be absolutely awesome if I knew absolutely everything about the terrain and I had all this other input, all this information, right? And that's what you can get if you use strategic clarity, the superpower of strategic clarity. And then let me give you an idea how, right? So if you want to make a complicated decision, it's not for simple decisions, right? You want to figure out what you want to eat for dinner? Don't do this, okay? Right. If you want to make a complicated decision, okay? Right. What would you do in real life, right? You would probably ask some people for help, right? Like you want to figure out, like, hey man, I'm thinking about moving to the south, right? I'm tired of this weather, right? Who isn't? Okay, I'm tired of moving to the south. I want to move to the south. I want to figure out where I want to live. What am I going to do? I'm going to talk to people that know better. I might talk to somebody like a headhunter, find out about jobs. I want to talk to maybe some people about schools. Got to move my kids to school. I talk to all those different kinds of people, right? That gives you some idea. Now, am I really going to go do that if I'm going to do that? Now, because it's complicated. Do I even know those people? And how am I going to get them all together? And are they going to do this for me? Is it going to cost money? Like, it's going to be complicated, right? It's going to take a long time. You can put that team together with AI. You can have AI model each of those people, right? And then have it interact, and you could discuss with those people, right? Is that going to be as good as real people? No, it won't. And that's for different reasons I discussed. You got to think about the level of expertise that AI has in different things. But it's going to be way better than you can do just in your head, right? Way better. And through that, as Napoleon said, gives you different angles, gives you better understanding of the terrain, right? Because you've got all these experts that are modeling all the different things that they might care about, right? And they'll help you make that decision faster or more clearly. Or maybe you were getting stuck, right? So maybe you can't get over the fact that, I don't like Miami. It's too hot there or whatever, blah, blah, blah. I can't. Just like, but, this team of people can be like, you know what, man, there are a lot more cities down there you can check out, right? That might have similar factors, similar culture, right? And this isn't a Google. This isn't a search. This is a discussion. So this is ability for you to see more clearly strategically because you can analyze the problem together with AI.
Ted, so that's where people get stuck though, my brother, is that, when they hear AI, and you kind of gave a couple examples already, at least the examples that most people do. They use it as, let me ask you this question, let me get this information, and then they copy and paste and run with it, right? They're not thinking conversation. They're not thinking strategic thinking. They're not thinking that because that seems, odd. Okay, to be fair, right? Because at the end of the day, now I got to talk to a machine, and what is that? So, and I know you probably break this down in the book, right? But how should people be utilized? How do they get there? Because right now, and I'm just give some examples, right? I've chatted with several of my friends, and chat like my AI is my assistant. To your point, everything you just got finished saying. I chat with her name is Susan. I chat with her every day, all day. We talk, and she gives me ideas, and then I challenge her like, boom, no, and to your point, it ain't perfect. So I'm like, you missed this. She's like, oh, good catch, Tone. And I'm like, all these type things, right? However, when you say that to the average Joe, they're looking at you like you just got one flew over the cuckoo's nest. Okay, right. So because they're not used to that, right? And then there must be an angle here, or I'm gonna lose myself, or I don't feel comfortable sharing. So let's break it down for them. What's the steps? Because where you're talking superpower, let's be fair. That's like letter H. I mean, that's like letter K. M. There's a bunch of stuff you need to do prior to that to get to that level. So what would those steps be, my brother?
So you're absolutely right, man. Like Tony, look, what I'm laying out is what's possible, right? So that people can be like, damn, I want some of that. But if you don't start doing that day one, that might be a little bit too much for you, right? So that's why I mentioned that there are other superpowers. So the way the book is laid out is that I have 4 principles, right, which talk about the way you use AI. Right. And then we talk about the specific things that you can do with it as in terms of the superpowers. Right. And it's a structure. Right. It's a structure. Again, I think the point here is, look, if you are super, super awesome, super expert at AI, you're not buying my book anyway. You probably don't buy books. Okay. But if you're
That's right.
You go look on Reddit, you go look online, and you can find it, or you can ask ChatGPT itself, like, hey, make yourself awesome, right? Whatever. Okay. The people that are going to read a book, like a book format, right? And those kinds of things are looking for something a little bit deeper, right? They're looking for something that's going to lead them through. And that's what I'm doing here, right? Mm-hmm. I'm trying to say it's a journey. It's a journey. And again, as I said earlier, mindset is a huge part of Ageless Peak Performance. That is what has to happen. Mindset working together with machines, working together with AI. So getting your head and comfortable around it necessitates the need to take it step by step, right? You jump, you want to go do things, it's a little trickier. So later on in the book, I actually have like an assessment and a 90-day path so that you can understand like where you're at in that journey. Because not everyone's going to be in the same place, right? And especially if you're using it in a work context, someone gives you the book, or your boss buys this book for the team, and it's okay, they're not all going to be in the same place. And that's something important to understand, right? Because there's both the technical type, like hands-on knowledge, how do I do this? But then there's also the comfort that you have to have with your ability to use it and to get the right answer, right? Because the flip side of everything we just talked about, guys, is that there are people who use AI tools and then really end up with bad results, right? And so one example that I cite in the book, right, is a survey it was a test that they did with very experienced open source developers. We're talking about people who like really can hack code, okay? And they said, listen, here's what we're going to do. We're going to assign you coding tasks, some you can use AI, some you cannot use AI. Okay, and then you're gonna normalize all that data. We're gonna figure out what happens. Okay, and then at the end of it, before they show the result, they ask them, like, listen, how did you do? How did you do? Like, do you feel better? Did you do? And what came back from these developers was that they were performing about 20% better. Okay, that they thought that they performed 20% better. The facts that came back was that they were 20% slower, 19% slower. Okay, that's crazy. It's a 40% difference. Okay, perception of how these guys thought they did with the actual result, right? And what does that mean? That means these super technical experts, right? These nerds who really know how this stuff works, they can't get it right off the bat either.
Right.
No shame in the fact that you need to take it step by step and understand, right, how it works, so you don't jump into a rabbit hole. So you use what I call the rocket power thrust of AI to go in the wrong direction. Right. So one of the principles is aim first, then accelerate. I think you guys get what that means.
Yeah.
But again, the discussion is interesting because the point is, if you don't learn how to aim and you're just going real fast, you wrap that car around a tree. Okay. Right. That's what happens. Right. You're not used to driving a Mustang. You take one out there, boom, you slam the accelerator. You're around a tree. Right. Because the damn thing doesn't turn very well. Right. That's how that works. Okay. And it's the same thing. Aim yourself. Right. So again, in terms of concrete advice, it's a big topic. There's a lot to it, but I think the general idea is the book is here to help. Right. It's here to encourage. It's here to give you examples of how you can walk through it, because people do think about this, and they should, very differently.
You've done an excellent job of living and absorbing and breathing this. I have a story. My daughter, I have a scar on my arm. And I was 4 years old, got 27 stitches. And she's like, hey, how did you get that big scar? Medicine wasn't what it is now. And I was telling her when I was 4, I was running around the back seat of my grandmother's vehicle and she got hit and I went through the glass. You know what I mean? She's like running around the back seat. I was like, oh, yeah, seatbelt laws didn't exist. You know what I'm saying? So kids are, you just get in, get as many as you can, all that kind of stuff. I'm saying that to say where this thing is going. I had heard something that you said about CB 53 in California. Can you give us a little bit about how ultimately the regulations are going to be put in place? And this is going to be every day to where we don't even remember when it wasn't AI. Tell me how we'll end up being my daughter at some point, explaining to the younger folks. I used to have to show my work when I did math problems. You know what I mean?
Right.
So help the viewers out as far as, do you touch that at all? Or where do you see that as far as the future or the next level of this? And then who's going to be left behind?
So I touch about that a little bit in the book, but it's not as much of a focus as some of the podcasts and some of the recordings that I've done on social media, specifically LinkedIn, or on the Substack that we have for Product Mind. Like we talk about a lot of different things in a little bit more detail. The book is less about that. But to get to your point, so in California, you had SB 53. You've got similar legislation in a lot of different parts of the country. Europe is way ahead of the United States in terms of regulation, as they always are. Right. And what you're saying is, look, there are pitfalls and there are issues. There are guardrails. There are some common sense things that we need to protect humans from themselves. We need to protect our citizens from themselves, and we should go do some of these things. Now, I think that certainly this administration right now at the federal level and in many states could care less about holding back anything. Okay, and certainly about holding back AI. Now, I think that's a mixed bag, honestly. Right. I think that it's a cop out. Right. Look at social media. Okay. The social media was created. The idea was they literally said we need to carve out the space to let them get away with literally anything they want. Right. Literally, there's a law that's like they are not responsible. They are just a pipe.
Correct.
In a degree that newspapers are not. Newspapers are responsible for their content. Social media is not responsible for its content. Right. And that allowed them to grow like crazy, take over the freaking world. Right. And take all that money and send it, over to Silicon Valley. Right. And so that kind of worked, I guess. But who got hurt? Our kids. Right. Look what's happening. It's crazy. That's crazy. And obviously, I don't. That's a separate topic for another day. You can have me back to talk about that. But
we will.
There are definite harms. Right. We all know it. You got a daughter. I got a daughter. Okay.
Absolutely.
You got sons. I got sons. Okay. Look, we know how that works. Okay. The kids are being harmed by that unbridled technological growth. The same thing is true for AI. Fun fact. OpenAI, which just recently got turned into a for-profit corporation, was originally a non-profit corporation whose idea was to protect people from Skynet. Okay?
Right.
Mandate.
You stole Tony's thing with the Terminator. You stole Tony's thing with the Terminator, right? We can't do the movie thing.
And then you had Elon Musk and Sam Altman. These guys are like, there's too much money here, bros.
Way too much. Yeah. Way too much.
We can't do this. No. Now it's just a guideline. Okay. It's a joke. Now, okay, call it whatever you want. But the point is, we have a very strange belief in Silicon Valley, in this country, that unbridled technological is just great, and it's not our fault what you tend to do with it. That is a cop-out, okay? And no matter what, you will see ultimately regulation catch up, right? Ultimately, that is what happens, right? Because the thing with the seatbelts, be like, come on, guys. This is
at some point. At some point.
Right.
We got to do something to protect people from themselves. So we are going to go see that for the worst excesses and the craziest stuff that you can do, as you should, because there's nothing different about whether that's legal or not, right? Like if you're into, let's say, kiddie porn or whatever, bro, that's illegal no matter how it works. Okay?
Right. No loopholes.
What it is, that is no bueno. Don't do that.
Right.
Okay. And so AI, no different, right? So again, the fact that it lets you do all sorts of crazy stuff doesn't mean it should let you do that kind of crazy stuff. That really shouldn't be okay.
That's right. Absolutely.
Ted, let's do this, man. One of the things, because, in your book, and you had let me read some excerpts of it, which I really enjoyed. That's why I was like, hey, we want you to come on and stuff to that nature. But you talked about peak performance in corporate America, right? And obviously there's teams, there's leaders of teams, and the world is changing, right? So I want to dive in a little bit in terms of how do you lead teams in the AI augmented world, right? But first I want to back up because when I asked you why did you want to come on a Black Executive Perspective talk about this topic, you specifically said, hey, this could be something that Black executives or people of color executives, let's say it that way, right? That they can be able to utilize or give I don't want to say advantage, but possibly create a level playing field. So talk a little bit about that and then dive into how leadership should work with their teams in an AI augmented world.
Sure. So I do believe it is an equalizer, right? And now one thing you can point to is that the dispersion of AI, right, generative AI specifically, right, is actually much flatter across the globe than any other tool before that. Now, the reason why is, of course, mobile, right? So you see places where the infrastructure is weak, but they've, basically throughout the world, right, they've got mobile. Everyone's got a cell phone, right? And in fact, you see, like, say, in Africa with M-Pesa and these kinds of things, you see, all these different technologies, right? You see advances beyond what we've got here in this country with the way people are using mobile, right? They're basically cashless society, these kinds of things, right? AI is no different. So in that way alone, it is an equalizer because it is disseminating across into populations that traditionally don't get it first, right? Now they're getting it at very close to the same time, if not the same time. So that's one. The other thing is in terms of using it to help you augment the way you work, right? To go back to the peak performance thing. And why is that? Right. So one of the most important things that determines the success of a child is to have someone care, right? Have someone care. Hopefully a parent, but that ain't a given, right? Certainly communities of color, right? Or immigrant communities where parents have to work. They're not home. They work in extra jobs because they got to pay the bills to give you a better life. And they're not home at night to do homework with you. They're not home enough to care about what you're doing about your work. Well, similarly, another success factor is being able to have a mentor. Right? Now, these things select for themselves. People mentor people like them. They can't help it. They can't help it. That's just a reasonable thing. AI can fill in a lot of these gaps and be the equalizer. You can use AI to model not just real conversations you might have with your boss, okay? You could have it, role play your boss. You could have it teach you various things without having to go bother your boss or your coworker. Right? Going back to that Coursera thing, right? Suck in all that knowledge and without putting any kind of label on that, give it to you and tell you what you need to learn, right? In any given situation. You can prepare yourself in a way that if you were, frankly, okay, a starting black man, other people may not want to help you. Whether it doesn't have to be racism. It just be because people don't help people like themselves. They don't see themselves in that person, right? How many times do you hear that? Okay? Now, you can now have access to a lot of those things because that knowledge is out there, and now it's being synthesized for you with AI. And so that is what I mean when I say it's the equalizer. It's both the spread of the tools themselves and your ability to use it to access things like mentoring, like role-playing, like conversations, like analysis that is available 24/7, just at a keyboard away, right? You're ready to go. Now,
go ahead.
The leadership, or do you want to move on to a different topic?
No, you got it. I want that because I got some. Yeah. Go ahead.
Okay, so let's talk about leadership, right? Because I think this is related, actually, right? So when you talk about leading teams of diversity, now you got all sorts of diversity because now you're talking about non-human AI. Now that's way more diverse, than people probably were thinking. Okay, but you've got AI agents, right? This is no different. Think about what happens right now when you've got people working remote. People working remote all over the world in certain cases. You already see situations where people thought they were employing someone they weren't, right? There was people are basically just they're in real time basically faking these kinds of conversations.
Yeah, catfishing.
Catfishing. This is all BS, right?
Yeah.
And you think about that's already happening. Right. So in the future, you could be the boss working remote and you've got people that you may not even know if they're human or AI human. Right.
Right.
Now, that's a pretty diverse team. Right. Now, think about that. So in that combination of what it means to lead. Right. I talked about this earlier. One part of it is making everyone get up to the level that they need to be at. Right. And by the way, this is covered in the book. So get up to the level they need to be at. Now, to do that, your job as the boss is to set the rules of the game. Right?
The expectations.
Go back to cheating. Okay. So, and newspapers, which I talked about earlier. So I have a news outlet, Daily Voice. This is how we met, Tony, right? So Daily Voice is local news, in eight states here in the country, right? Okay. Now, if we were to use AI to write our stories and pass that off as humans, that would be absolutely not okay. Even if it's legal, it is legal, right? But I was passing off as humans, just like I wouldn't pass off one human's work for another human's work. That's totally ridiculous. Right? That's the line that we don't cross. Right. And so when we implemented AI in our organization, we had to be like, listen, this doesn't change what we're doing. OK, humans have the final editorial control. Humans have maybe at some point we change that and maybe we don't. But for now, this is the rule that we stick at. So if we want to implement AI in our organization, our job as the bosses, as the owners, is to lay out the rules, the norms. What's OK, what's not OK. Right. And some of that may be obvious, but a lot of it actually is not obvious because if we go back to it, it's stuff that's just not spoken about. Right. Stuff not spoken about and certainly not day to day within an organization. Right. And then the point there is you lead them. Right. You push through the different things. You figure out to get everyone up to speed. And then once you've got people that are all kind of bought in, you can unlock all sorts of different things that you're working on. Again, think about the analogy I like here, right, is the conductor analogy. Okay. So if you're the conductor of an orchestra, think about that. Like a good orchestra, right? Not like a high school orchestra or whatever, but like an orchestra where people are being paid. Okay,
right? Symphony orchestra.
Symphony. Those people are amazing. I don't care if you're in a small city or you're in New York Philharmonic, okay, or Vienna or whatever. Those people are amazing at their parts. Okay, you are probably not better than any of them at their parts. Probably not, okay? And the higher level is impossible. But like even at the lowest level, probably not. Like maybe you have one or two instruments, but not all of them, right? They're better than you are, okay? You have no ability to do anything to affect the outcome in a concert. Nothing other than help them perform better. And that is the leadership that is going to be needed in the AI era. Now, by the way, this may sound like leadership that you should be doing anyway, but it's an aspiration that most people don't do. Most leaders, it's just a mix, right? It's a mix of doing, it's a mix of all this kinds of stuff like that. But in the future of how you lead, right, it's about you cannot directly do anything. You don't have an instrument in your mouth. You don't have a violin in your hands. You can't do that. All you can do is make them perform better and together. That takes it to the next level. So that is both powerful because now you can have an orchestra filled with AI players, the equivalent of. It's also scary because you have to be good at a skill that is pretty different than literally just doing things. Again, that is good leadership anyway, but how much good leadership really is there, folks?
Right.
Love it.
Let me do this. I'm gonna turn you into therapist, Ted, for me. And right. I am a young go-getter with a desire to be a high-level executive, and I'm getting my weight up. And then we have this old crotchety guy that's making a whole bunch of money, and now he's at the club. He's read, Ageless, you know what I'm saying, Peak, Performance, and you know what I'm saying. He's read the book, and now he's on this AI Viagra that you done gave him with this Ageless Peak Performance. And what chance do I have to catch up now? Because not only has he bridged the gap with your book, but he also had the liquid assets and the cachet and the connections to where it's hard for me to make me feel better, Ted.
Make me feel better.
Well, I don't know if that was a question or a commercial, but okay, I appreciate that. I appreciate that. Now listen, man. Here's what I would say to younger people, right? Okay. Now, and I think it's younger is relative, just so we're clear. And first of all, it's also younger in different disciplines, right? So what I'm talking about in the book, right, Ageless Peak Performance ain't only about work, perhaps. It's about anything intellectual you can do. Family decisions, communication, all those kinds of things. So there's all those different spheres that you can better yourself at. So that's the first thing. The second thing, though, is, and I talked about this a little bit earlier, is that when you're younger, you're supposed to put in your dues, and now you can use AI to come up the curve that much faster. You can peak faster. So here, you might have heard the story that NASA had all of these interstellar cartography or whatever. I'm gonna get that wrong, but like all these results that they had from their telescopes, for like hundreds of thousands of star systems. Okay, and they basically literally did not have the time and energy to analyze all of that. Of course not, right? And they were like, okay, here's this data set, and let these amateur astronomers go find whatever they could find, and people be like, oh, cool, like I found this spectrography or whatever indicates that there's a cool like binary star or whatever the hell it is, right? And so I think the person was 13, but certainly a high schooler, so maybe a little bit older. I don't know. I would get this wrong, but they developed an algorithm using AI to analyze all of that data,
flat out.
Dude. Okay, this is certainly a kid not in industry. This is certainly someone who has not ever worked, in NASA, not ever worked for an engineering firm, didn't go to, engineering school, and they're able to add value right away because they were able to use AI to learn about it. They were able to use generative AI tools to analyze the data set. They're able to do good work and basically come up that curve and add value almost immediately. Right? That would not have been possible with older technology.
There's no question. There's no question. No question whatsoever. Here's the thing, though, too. I would also throw into Chris's point, right? Yeah, so maybe the boss, he jumped in and he's using it as a superpower and you feel like, oh, how can I move up? Guess what? You still use it, become the best, and then you go find a job somewhere else.
Damn right.
You become the boss in some other place, right? So that should not stop you, right? That should also make sure that because at the end of the day, you're not going to stay there forever anyway, okay? So it's not about step laddering. It's about me being the best, me working on what I need to do so I can be at my peak. And if that's either here at this organization or it could be somewhere else. And I just quicken the pace for me to be able to get there, right? Versus sitting in this seat and waiting 3, 4, 5 years where now I can take it to the next level, right? So, but let me throw this at you, buddy. So look, I got to give it to you, man. This has been fantastic. You really, and look, let's be fair though, too, right? There's a ton of stuff. You've been really doing a lot of research on this. So let's dive into the last segment. So who gets left behind, my brother? Well, number one, where is it going over the next 5 years, and who gets left behind?
Well, I think the short answer to that are people who are afraid and who either don't ever want to use AI or approach it very, very timidly, right? And only need to be kind of kicking and screaming, dragged into it. Okay, I think they're going to lose out, right? This is a whole different type of digital divide, right? Digital divide was a lot about access. In this case, there's more access, but you're still gated on your own ability. Now, I'm not saying it's totally flat, right? That is actually definitely one of the bigger problems is that if you don't have an internet, okay. Again, like it's interesting that we have such a weak ass internet, certainly for our wired connections, given the state of our country. But hey, it is what the facts. But mobile better almost most places. Not everyone has mobile. Got it. But like getting people those tools, and then now when you've got those tools, now you can go do something with it. Okay. And if you choose not to do something with it, if you choose to look away, you choose to like bury yourself and turtle yourself, you better hope you're really good at whatever the hell you're doing, frying burgers or whatever, because those are the prospects you got.
That's just the bottom line, though, right, buddy? That's the bottom line.
You got. So that's the obvious answer, right? Which is and again, the whole point of the book, the whole point, right? Ageless Peak Performance is that anyone can get this, right? I try to make the case. It's like this is not for the exceptional. This is for everybody, right? And you just got to get past the fear, and this is why I try to make it a guide.
The key.
The subtitle is The Playbook for AI Excellence, because it's a playbook. It's something you can use to walk up. Now, again, so if you're reluctant, you're fighting this, you don't really want to go do this, again, you better hope that you are either so far advanced that you don't give a crap because you're not going to make it that many more years, or you're doing something that is just going to be super valued, right? You're the world's best chair maker. Or just even a really good chair maker from scratch. I mean, like, cut down the tree and make a chair. Great, someone's going to want that. Okay, you're set. Now, other people, sorry. Now, the other part of it, though, right, I think is the other extreme, right? We haven't talked about this yet, but this, Chris, you alluded to this when we talked about regulations, some things you shouldn't do. We're talking about some of those things. But there's the other side of this, which is I'm going to outsource my brain right now. I'm ready to go, right? Like, this technology is amazing. I'm just going to have it run my life. Well, okay, that's not going to work either, okay? Because I do believe that the actual future, right, maybe 5 years, not sure, but, is going to be hybrid, right? There's going to be smarter and smarter models that come out with AI, whether they truly think or not, separate things. You have me back for a different conversation. But even without that, right, the future of this is going to be hybrid. The future of this is going to be man and AI working together, right? It's the tool that's powering you, and we can all take credit for it together, right? Now, and if you go too far and you want to be machine right now, like it's going to run my life, then you get the atrophy, right? That's what we talked about earlier, right? You're going to lose that skill set. Now, another way to go back to your question, or to answer it a very different way, is what should you study if you go to school right now? This is a fascinating, super loaded question for me, okay? It's given that I have kids, and then also I'm a regent for higher education here in Connecticut. So I'm involved in this. And what I will tell you is, I don't know about course of study right now, right? I don't know about course of study, but I will tell you about the important things that I think everyone needs to know. 1, critical thinking. 2, ability to sort out BS, okay? To be able to know what's legit versus not legit, okay? And maybe there's a third, which is like hard work, okay? Yeah, but
that's
certainly
table stakes. Yeah.
That's table stakes. You don't got hard work, you got nothing.
You ain't got nothing anyway.
Right. Especially now, no one's handing you nothing. Okay. In fact, they're taking it away. Okay. Right. Now, but going back to this, critical thinking, right? Because if you want to be able to use technology, or you want to use tools, or you even want to be a good human, frankly, like, you need to be able to think critically. You be able to dissect the problem. You need to figure out what the actual facts are, not the facts. You be able to make analyses. All that critical thinking, super freaking important. Super freaking important. And the other thing, just as important, right? Because AI, right, will swamp you with all sorts of not true stuff if you let it. Right?
Correct.
You let it. That's why I say it acts like an intern, okay? Right?
There's no question.
It acts like a junior employee. It acts like that super hungry. They're never going to tell you no. The answer is never no, sir. It's always yes, sir. I will get that for you. And then you look at this, you're like, this is garbage. And you're like, yes, you know what? But I was up all night putting this together for you. Like, you know what? I appreciate your effort, right? I appreciate your effort. But you know what? Let's try this a little bit better next time, right? AI is kind of like that.
I love it, buddy.
Absolutely. But you know what? Before we get out of here, I did want to talk to you briefly. And once again, we're just going to have you back because we are at the precipice of a big change. And before you start touring and promoting Ageless Peak Performance, on circuits and things of that nature, can you give us, the listeners, a little bit about what your opinion is about the versions that came out when they took away the sycophant type of dynamic that they changed from to 5.2 is now with a previous version. It was, yes, you're the greatest. Oh my gosh, you're so fabulous. And it was really getting people emotionally drawn in to fall in love with the AI because they were always the most brilliant person and the handsomest, all of that. What was your thoughts on that? Chris. Man, what was your thoughts on that, bro?
So first of all, let's talk about why they do that in the first place. And the answer is, of course, money. The answer is, of course, right? Like, again, but it's also because of the eagerness aspect of it. Now, again, that is programmed behavior in most cases. Not all. It's not all. But, like, partly it is programmed to not tell you can't do things, because if you have a tool that you're paying for that tells you can't do things, you're like, well, why am I paying for this piece of crap? You know, like this tells me I can't do it. So
Absolutely.
that's the other thing, though. Now, even when it doesn't do it right, it says it nicely and sycophantically. So it's like, oh, it's so nice. I can't tell this no. Right. I can't. Oh, I can't do that. Like this is my friend. I can't fire my friend. I can't like this is my friend. Of course, I'll pay you your $20 a month. Right. So that was what was behind a lot of this. But I think what ended up happening is that people understood. Savvier users were always able to deal with this, okay? And then there are ways you can change the system prompt. You can make it less sycophantic, or not sycophantic, frankly, or the opposite, okay? But the reality of it is most people had no idea how to do any of those things. And then it hit them in the wallet, of course, right? There's no legislation stopping this. There's no anything right? What ended up happening is they realized, and this is what tends to happen, and this is a vastly, uncharted territory, right? We're rapidly growing technology. So they realize, you know what? We can make more money if we're a little bit straighter with people, right? Because now this whole shimmer of sycophancy and all this other stuff like that is kind of losing its edge, and people are now not trusting it. Now they're not using it. No. So let's dial that back and make it more honest. I'm pretty sure. Again, I'm not in the boardrooms. I don't know what these dudes are saying, and they're pretty much all dudes. I have no idea, okay? But it's something like that.
Cool.
Hey, so buddy, final thoughts, man. What do you want to leave the listeners with out of everything that you discussed today?
So, first of all, thank you, brothers, for having me, right? This is fun time.
Oh, buddy, come on, man. You've been awesome. Stop.
This is all good. So, I would obviously, get people to come back, tune in to you guys, because you're doing a great job here. Look, Ageless Peak Performance, agelesspeakperformance.com, real simple, right? Go there, check it out. I want people to know that, again, I'm part of a group called Product Mind, right? This is a book that we're basically putting out on our imprint. There are other books. My two partners are awesome. They're also black. That does not mean that they're awesome. Okay, they're also awesome. But they happen to also be black.
They'll all be black. That's right, baby. That's right, baby.
I'm pointing out to your audience. That's all. No, honestly, these are good friends of mine. We've known each other forever. Worked at amazing places together, and you know what? We do a lot of writing. We talk a lot about these kinds of things. A lot of it, the more kind of detailed topics that are beyond the scope of the book, that are a little bit more wonky, that are a little bit more about technology and technology product, and a little bit more about pontificating about the future. So I want people to know about that. But honestly, so that's the TED commercial. Now let's talk about what you for the listener, which is this. This is all out there for you, right? This is all out there for you. This is a great reset. This is like the same thing as when the internet broke, right? This is a reset. This is a chance for you to climb real fast and be amazing at it, and then be that old dude that everyone's at, or that old woman that everyone goes, man, what the hell did she do? And she'd be like laughing, because she'd be like, you know what? I got all this money banked, and back in the day, this is what I did. When generative AI broke, I pioneered this, I spearheaded this, I crushed it, and now I'm chilling, right? That can be you, right? That really can be you. We are at an inflection point, right? Because of the advent of this technology. So get out there and grab it, folks. Get out there and grab it.
You know what? I want to ask you, because you've helped us so much, and you provided a Black executive perspective, the blue pill in the matrix. Yeah. So how can we help you going forward, besides doing more things? Because we got to sign up for more. This could have been a 4-hour. Like, I got so many questions, because
now I got to come back.
When you bring in the kids and some of the relevancy that I didn't, the aperture of my mind was just on, help me do this, ask it a question, and then spit out an answer. What should we eat today? And what should my workout plan to be if I want to make my arm bigger? That kind of stuff. And you're like, no, teams, and you can use it for segmented regiments and battalions and all this other things. It's so many things that the tool, if used correctly, can be leveraged to make us not feel so weighed down and emotional distraught to go day to day through this rat race. And that made me feel really good. So I want to keep that good feeling rolling. We're going to call you again to do other things before, right. Like I said, the agelessperformance.com is going to start getting all kind of people booking you to come and talk to them in person, because we got to get ahead of the curve. But how else can we support you?
Well, listen, guys, I think the best thing you can do is just do what you're doing, right? Which is spread the word, right? Which is spread the word. I think that is the point. Again, agelesspeakperformance.com. You can go there. You listeners can go there. But for you guys, I mean, listen, this is the fun part, right? Telling people about what you do, helping people. This is fun. This is why we do this, right? This is why we do this, right? And frankly, this is why we're here. And this is perhaps something else that it's going to unearth because of AI, which is when a lot of the mundane things are done for you, what's left? You got to figure out why are you doing this, right? And I think the answer is people, right? This is at least for me, right? It's like I want to be out there working with people, interacting with people, doing things for people, because that's legit, and that's what that's what gets me going. So figure that out for yourself. But for me, what you guys are doing here, helping spread the word, helping Black executives, older, younger, combination, it's great. Like this is fighting the fight, right? This is what we need.
Well, thanks, my brother. And look, we want everyone. Because as you saw, Chris was chomping at the bit and still hungry for knowledge, and as well as myself. And as you can see, Ted is just so open. He's really more about helping people learn this. This is why he put together the book. So his book is launching in June, Ageless Peak Performance.
May now. I actually pushed up to May.
Okay, so May, Ageless Peak Performance. You go to the website, agelesspeakperformance.com. And then also at productmind.co. Is that what I'm hearing?
Yeah. Productmind.co is the company that I have my two partners. And that covers our writings and our other stuff as that. But the book site itself, that's really going to get a lot of information. And right now, it's too early, and so May is actually not that far away, but it's also quite a long time away. So the book is almost but not 100% finalized. But hopefully I'm going to lock that down. I actually need to lock that down in the next couple of weeks. Then start producing it, and then doing more of these promotions. So that
awesome, buddy. And then you can follow Ted at Ted Sensei.
That's
on social channels, because you'll probably, after you listen and watch this, you're probably gonna have a million questions. Number one, waiting to get his book in May, but number two, follow up directly with him on his social channels. So number one, we want to thank my brother Ted Yang for coming on the Black Executive Perspective podcast, talk about Ageless Peak Performance, share his perspective, and for everyone out there, he'll definitely be back at some time in the future. Maybe we'll have you come back when you launch the book in May, right? So you can talk more about it. But we really want to thank you for coming on a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Tony, Chris, been fun, real fun. Let's do it again soon. All right, guys?
All right. So now I think it's time for
Tony's Tidbit.
And the tidbit today, your peak doesn't expire because of your age. It expires when you stop learning. AI isn't here to replace your experience. It is here to amplify it. The future belongs to those willing to evolve before they're forced to. And you heard a lot of that from our good friend Ted Yang.
Absolutely. So we'd like to remind you at this time to check out Need to Know with Nsinga. You don't want to miss Need to Know, a segment where Dr. Nsinga Burton is on a Black Executive Perspective podcast, and she dives into timely and crucial topics that shape our community and our world. Each week, make sure you tune in. She's passionate, she's powerful, she's very learned, multi-hyphenated, and it's something you don't want to miss each week on the Black Executive Perspective.
And don't forget to check out our roundtable, Pull Up, Speak Up, where bold, unfiltered voices tackle today's most provocative issues, sharp perspectives, real talk, call to action. Tune in to join the revolution. Pull Up, Speak Up here on a Black Executive Perspective podcast.
Last month, we've lost one of our most proud endeavors, and we don't want you to miss a mixed executive perspective. We have a woman named Grace Fuden Corey that talks about so many things and unveils some of the secrets and the stories behind being a biracial executive at top-level companies. She tackles this with leadership, fear, purpose, and belonging, giving a voice to the perspectives too often left behind. She's honest, she's thoughtful, she's sincere, and she's necessary. You don't want to miss it. A mixed executive perspective here on a Black Executive Perspective podcast. And then I would be remiss if I don't always end with our call to action. Our goal here is to eliminate all forms of discrimination. And to achieve this, we're asking for everyone to embrace less, L-E-S-S. The L is for learn. This is what our brother Ted Yang is all about. Educate yourself on racial, cultural, and technological nuances to make sure that you stay relevant, you stay informed, and you stay engaged in the world around you.
And then after you learn, you have the letter E, which stands for empathy. Now, since you've learned and you've enlightened yourself on racial, cultural, technology nuances, now you can be more empathetic to your fellow brothers and sisters because you can put yourself in their shoes.
And then the first S stands for share. You don't want to hide it. You want to divide it. Share your insights. Enlighten others. This is something that we can collectively better at only if we share it with each other.
And the final S stands for stop. We want everyone to stop discrimination as it walks in your path. This is something that everyone can do. It is as simple as at the Sunday dinner table, if Aunt Jenny or Uncle Joe says something that's inappropriate, instead of sitting there with your mouth open, shocked or giggling, you say, Aunt Jenny, Uncle Joe, we don't believe that, we don't say that, and you stop it right there. So if everyone can incorporate less, LESS, will build a more fair, more understanding world. And guess what? We'll all see the change that we want to see because less will become more.
You want to make sure you tune in to the next episode, but you also want to go double click and check out other episodes in the catalog. Lots of provocative, insightful things as we challenge the norms. We want you to go to the website, sign up for the monthly newsletter, The Monthly Perspective. It's hot off the presses each month, and you will love it when you get it. Leave us a review. Let us know what you'd like to hear about. Let us know what's top of mind for you, and subscribe wherever you're listening. And where can they find us, Tony?
My brother, you can find the Black Executive Perspective podcast on YouTube, Apple, Spotify, or wherever you get your podcasts. And follow us on our social channels at LinkedIn, X, YouTube, TikTok, Facebook, and Instagram at A Black Exec. Again, for our fabulous guest, the MIT engineer, author, Peak Performance, Ted Yang. For the co-host with the most, my boy down in Dallas, Chris P. Reed. I'm Tony Tidbit. We talked about it. We learned about it. We AI'd about it today, right? We're going to keep striving and thriving about it. We love you. And guess what? We're out.
A Black Executive Perspective.